Hello there, Andrew Kolsky here, National Sleep Network, where we're talking everything sleep. Today, we are fortunate to have Stuart Heatherington. He is founder of a company called Bleep, and he's going to tell us more about that. It's not a company that takes out expletives from videos. It's a company related to sleep, and I'm sure he'll explain the name to us. But with that, Stuart, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. So my name is Stuart Heatherington, and I am the founder of Bleep Sleep. Bleep is an adhesive-based CPAP mask company. And when I say adhesive, what that means is we eliminate all the need for straps and headgear. And adhesive actually creates the seal on your skin. And then the mask, our latest mask, which is called Eclipse, just magnetizes onto the adhesive. And that gives you a leak-free night of sleep that eliminates about 25 pain points. Some people have a lot of different pain points, but the big ones are leak, uh, strap marks on your face, bags around your eyes, bridge breakdown across your nose, hair damage, tangled hair, matted hair, things of that nature. So we're Eclipse is probably the smallest mask on market
Great.
right now. So
Great. Well, I'm certainly excited to get into a conversation where we'll show. I think you said you can do a little demo for us of that
yeah,
today. But
absolutely.
but before we get into that, I want to make sure that we better understand the problem because some people may not understand all the issues. And because you are the founder of a company dealing with CPAP issues, can we start off by you telling us a little bit about how did you get into the sleep business in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So getting out of college, my wife had actually gone into sleep from the beginning. Hold a second, my laptop is starting to run low. So the she got into sleep coming out of college. I was actually at Outback Steakhouse as a manager, and we were on different shifts. And she really enjoyed what she was doing, and she made the observation that I might actually like this as a change in a career. So I was in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. Presbyterian Hospital had an opening, and we had some opportunities for me to kind of go in and kind of observe, and ultimately that ended up leading me to get into the industry. From there, this was back in the mid '90s, and my father ended up getting diagnosed inside of those like first couple of years. At that point, I knew my grandfather was a sleep apnea patient, and and just kind of seeing how it affected people.
Mhm.
Uh, it just it was something that I was very intrigued with. And then as we kind of skipped forward, I got I stayed in the diagnostic side of sleep for a fairly long time and ended up owning sleep labs. And at some point, we were doing a continuing education uh, show that was just outside of Myrtle Beach. And my wife at the time actually worked for a competitor, and she was there working the booth, and
Mhm.
I was getting CEs. And it was like a Friday night and going into a Saturday morning. And I woke up at about 3:30 in the morning and had kind of had an epiphany moment where I literally had a concept dream, if you will, about what became our Gen 1 product, which is called Dreamport. And I got a hotel napkin, drew out the concept, um, and woke my wife up. And I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And she was like, "Hey, that's really interesting." And I was like, "Hey, look, it could probably solve these array of pain points." And we wrapped up the show Sunday at about noon, drove home, and there was a product out at the time called Provent that just was tape, and it was the tape was used as a non-CPAP way to kind of use your own expiratory pressure by trapping it inside your airway. It
Hmm.
was very uncomfortable to breathe on, but conceptually, the tape was something that I needed. It had like a little check valve, and so I took an X-Acto knife and I trimmed out the two little check valves, and I had gone to Lowe's, Home Goods, and CVS. And at CVS, I bought some corn patches, and at Lowe's, I'd found these little tiny, like cylindrical objects that had these little flat discs on one end. So it kind of looked like an upside down tornado. And so what I did was I took the upside down tornado and I put it on the adhesive that I cut out the hole in, and I put the corn patch on the other side. And so basically now I had a sealed thing with a little tube on the end of it. And I had some old nasal pillow mask. And at that point, I had already begun wearing CPAP myself. And I'll tell you that story in just a little bit. But
Hmm.
interestingly enough, so there was no release mechanism. So basically, I had taken an extra small nasal pillow mask and I cut all the headgear off of it. And I jammed these little tornado tubular ports down into the nasal pillows. And my wife held the mask in place while I cleaned my skin with an astringent, and then I applied it. And it worked all night long at a pressure of 10 centimeters.
Hmm.
And so I went from having a concept dream at 3:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning to proof of concept by Monday morning. And I went out and hired a patent attorney that Monday and
Wow.
filed a provisional patent. So in the end, that kind of like I waited for the patent to get approved. There really wasn't anything in the market. Everything that we had found, we kind of like produced for the patent office to review. Skip forward a couple of years, and I had sold my labs to Sleepworks, and my patent attorney had called me and said, "Hey, look, they're going to grant you your patent." And then I went out that first weekend and raised $150,000. And that kind of like started the path of, all right, we're going to develop a CPAP mask and we're going to take it to market. And it's going to be a headgear free, strap free mask.
Wow.
Uh, and then that was sometime around 2014. So skip ahead to now. And it takes a lot of time and planning and, and raising a lot of funds to be able to get a med device, off the ground.
Hmm.
So here we are. We just launched probably 6 months ago our latest mask, which is called Eclipse, and it's just a really novel and unique mask. And as I had said earlier, if you put it on correctly, it doesn't leak, and it eliminates so many pain points. So much so that we actually ended up getting an NIH grant from the National Institute of Heart and Lung in order to help us develop it. And we actually did some research studies and a clinical study, a blinded clinical study against the world's best-selling CPAP mask, so that we could show that Eclipse actually does what we feel like it can do.
Hmm. Wow. So
That's
there's
kind of the background.
I was going to say there's a lot in there, which is, one of the great things that I get to do by doing this podcast is I get to talk to other people like yourself who, you're not with some huge company. You don't have all this money and funding behind you to develop products. You just are a person who sees a problem, you find a solution, and then you go forward and you make it happen instead of just talking about it, which is what most people do is they talk about things. um and so here you are today with this product, this company, all this stuff that's coming from that. So it's, to me, I really enjoy that, because I consider myself the same thing. I'm a guy who develops new products and new things, and I don't have a huge company behind me or anything, but I like the spirit of making things happen. So can you share with us, in a second, we'll take a look at the product because I'm sure everyone would love to see it, as would I. But before we do that, you said that you were a CPAP user and you had your father and family members that were CPAP users. So what was the problem? Why did you need to come up with this product?
Well, I mean, from doing titrations, and I've probably done 10,000 sleep studies, from the the diagnosing sleep study, the PSG, on over to the CPAP titration. And in the lab, when you're watching people breathe on CPAP, you see an array of problems that don't mask themselves. No pun intended. uh, you see the countless leaks that somebody can have during the night. A lot of patients come into the lab and they've already, they've had CPAP or had sleep apnea for some time. And they've already begun kind of positionally treating themselves. So they know that sleeping on their back is not a very comfortable opportunity, and it constricts the airway. So a lot of these patients begin sleeping on their side and sleeping on their stomach, because at that point, gravity is your friend. Your jaw pulls away from your face when your face can angle towards the floor, and that's going to have more of an opportunity to open your airway up and make it a little bit easier for you to breathe. In some cases, it's the only way they can breathe. Whereas if they get on their back, it's like they're being strangled at night. But you see, patients that, claustrophobia with the CPAP mask, it's a real deal. A lot of patients don't, initially take to CPAP very well without kind of practicing on it. And practicing with the CPAP mask that has a bunch of straps, can be challenging. We actually kind of make that really, really easy once you put the adhesive component on. But you see patients with dry eyes. You see patients who have bridge breakdown across the top of the nose, and it looks like a welt. And so it's just, you just have marks all over the face. And then if you try to sleep on your side with the traditional CPAP mask, in many cases your pillow will push on the straps or push on the silicone, and it dislodges it, and then the leak wakes you up, or it's just causing a lot of leak. And so many patients today are put on auto CPAP when they get titrated from like 5 to 20. And unfortunately, the technology within a lot of these auto CPAPs are not very accurate, and patients aren't educated on that. So they think that the CPAP unit is going to fix me. But when they have all these leaks, many of the machines are trying to compensate for the leak, and the machine doesn't understand where the leak's coming from. They think could be the mask, it could be the mouth, but it will just keep compensating. And I've seen patients that have shown their titration study to me where they needed, a pressure of like 9 rem supine, and then they got a very low apnea hypopnea index at a pressure of 9, and their oxygen levels were elevated above 95%. They slept really good at that pressure. And then they get put on 5 to 20. They take that CPAP unit home, and then all of a sudden they start incurring leaks. Maybe it starts a little bit with the mask, then maybe it kind of moves a little bit to the mouth. But then what happens is the machine's like, oh my gosh, well, they're just having so much more leak. We need to keep going up. I've seen the same people that needed 9 suddenly now need a pressure of 15 or 16 or 17 at home. And now they have crazy leaks that are just all over the place. They're having dry eyes. They're strapping the mask down even tighter to try to compensate for the leaks. Just incredibly uncomfortable. So being able to kind of control leaks is crucial, not only to obtaining good sleep with CPAP, but also in making sure that your dumb CPAP unit can actually, play by the rules and be smart about how it goes about titrating you during the night. So the more leaks you can eliminate, both from the mask and the mouth, the more accurate your machine's going to be, the better your sleep's going to be. But more importantly, it kind of gives you a path to really begin dialing in your pressure. And that is crucially important. And one of the main reasons it's important is the patient needs to be educated more so they can get really involved in their sleep, because there's been so many reimbursement cuts, from insurance, that when patients are dealing, with the physician office and the respiratory therapist, in a lot of cases, they can't get back in for 3 months.
Right.
Well, most of the literature will tell you, if you begin failing out in the first 2 weeks, it's a hard path to overcome. So if CPAP therapy is not going well and there's no support mechanism and you don't understand what's going on, many patients will put their equipment in the closet, or that just sits on the nightstand and it collects dust.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really critical that you know that you have a good support system and you have a mask, and that you can work with, that fits you and is unique to your needs, so that it can help the actual blower do what it's supposed to do. Um, and I don't think you're going to find a mask manufacturer out there where a sales rep won't tell you that the mask is what drives compliance. It really is.
Hmm.
Finding a comfortable mask that can eliminate problems for you specifically is a huge obstacle to overcome. And in many cases, you know, certainly since COVID has kind of come, onto the scene, mask fittings within, a durable medical equipment company. It used to be that you could go in and you could try on, 10 masks, and they would clean those masks. And then you could keep trying them under pressure in a chair and kind of lay back. You could find something, that made sense for you. Well, those days are gone. Most DMEs don't want to clean masks. So what it does is it leaves patients trying to buy mask after mask after mask, trying to solve these various pain points that they're facing. And that's the thing. It is a misconception, because you have even a lot of respiratory therapists and a lot of doctors just think it's a couple pain points, and and everybody should be the same. Uh, because you see this whole mentality where a lot of patients get put on the same masks. And unfortunately, there are even DMEs out there that they put everybody on full face masks to start with.
Hmm.
It's it's not what you should start patients on, and there's tons of literature to support it, but they do it anyway. There's some nefarious reasons why that takes place, and then there's some other reasons where they just don't know any better. Um, so our thing is, we try to do a really good job of educating patients. Uh, there is no one mask for everyone. Even our masks don't work for some patients. Uh, we probably work for 95% of patients.
Hmm.
Uh, and, the more pain points you have, the more of a solution we are for you.
Right.
So,
Right.
um,
Well, do you actually have your product there that you could show us and
yeah,
demonstrate?
absolutely.
Because
I
I mean, it sounds very interesting, and the whole issue of leakage from the mask getting pushed aside or not fitting right or hitting your pillow, obviously, as you say, is a huge problem. It's not something that there's an easy fix for. Yes, getting the proper fitting mask is important, and fitting it properly once you have the proper fitting mask is important. But even then, it's no secret that I'm a CPAP user. I've said it on my shows before, and I run into the same problem. I have, you know, a comfortable nasal pillows and all, but even so, when you turn over and you push against the pillow, you get a leak.
lodges it.
So
Yeah,
show us your product.
yeah. So this is Eclipse, and this is the RX bag. So it is covered by Medicare and private pay insurance, but you get the frame and you get 2 boxes of the disposable component in there. So a box of the disposable component. This doesn't look like a nasal pillow, but it actually has the same billing code as a nasal pillow. And inside the box, you have a sheet of adhesives, and these are completely flat. So we're not really a nasal mask, and we're not really a cradle mask, and we're not really a pillow mask. We're kind of a combination of a whole bunch of things. But if I had to tell you, we have all the upside and benefits of like a nasal pillow or mask as far as our size. We're really small. Uh, but conceptually, it's more like a cradle mask and how it undermounts the nose. but it breathes like a nasal mask. Um, so with the adhesive, you can actually trim these to fit your nose. They're a little bit bigger than most people will need. And I've got a sheet here where I've already kind of trimmed them down, and they're
Mhm.
about the size of a quarter when I put them on. You have to clean around your nose before you apply. So I'm just using an alcohol prep pad, and I'm only going to spend about 5 seconds cleaning around my nose. So really simple. You can immediately dry your skin. And then as far as the application, I'm just going to peel off one adhesive patch. And
Mhm.
again, nothing is going to go up inside the nose. So what this is going to do, by not having anything that can rub inside the nostrils, it reduces irritation and ulceration that can come from wearing a nasal pillow. And this is larger than like your largest nasal pillow. So when you put this on, you just line up the ring with your nostril. Second one goes on just like that. And that's it. So now I am prepped and ready to go to bed. This is the Eclipse frame. And as you can see, zero headgear, no straps. There are a series of magnets, and the magnets actually grab onto the mask. So when you're ready to connect, you just lift it up and it connects for you, just like this. We
Hmm.
are the only mask on the market that allows you to check to see whether or not you have a correct seal at the beginning of the night and then at the end of the night. So once I put this on, I can cap the end of it, blow in and out with my nose,
Oh,
and
wow.
now I know I have a definitive seal. So once I have a definitive seal, I can hook it right into my CPAP unit and turn my CPAP unit on. And for this demonstration, I'm actually using bi-level. And I'm using bi-level because it will actually go up to a pressure of 25. And you can see active respiration as I breathe.
Yeah.
So I can press this against the side of my cheek at a pressure of 25
Oh, wow.
with no leak. Now,
Wow.
this is really important because if I want to get out of it, this is really, really easy to allow me to get out. So if I'm a new CPAP patient and, when I put CPAP on for the first time, it might feel like it's stealing your breath. It's not, it's piping air into you. And at a pressure of 25, I'm getting more air than most people can tolerate. But if you are a new user, in many cases, the physician and the respiratory therapist will tell you, you can practice a little bit. You can put it on, breathe, get comfortable with how that air is going to feel. But if it's still in your breath, you can take it back off again. Put it back on, put it back off, back on, back off. So that's very helpful for a lot of patients who are claustrophobic and just are trying to acclimate during the day, sitting up, just breathing on PAP therapy. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about are varying pain points that CPAP masks can cause. So if our mask is on, one of the things that there'll be no chance for bridge breakdown across the nose. I already covered there's no ulcerations inside the nostrils like a nasal pillow could cause.
Mhm.
The tip of my nose will never feel like it's painful, which some nasal pillow mask could cause. I have no pressure on my upper lip. Matter of fact, I can sweep my whole hand between the mask and my upper lip. I have no marks across my cheek. I have no marks beneath my ears. Some patients who have beards, the straps coming through here will actually cause follicle infections in the beard. Patients with hair issues, tangled hair, bald spots. We've got a competing mask that it swivels on top of the head and it'll cause a bald spot. Bald spots where the headgear comes across. Tangled hair, damaged hair, broken hair. There are a lot of patients that have flat occipital regions and the headgear will slide up the back of their head. And when it does, the mask comes off their nose. Not with us. No dry eyes, some of the smaller nasal pillow masks, the headgear encroach up beside the eyes, and as they kind of push in, will cause bags to appear up underneath the eyes. So we eliminate all of that. But more importantly, if you have no leaks, then you're going to get more consolidated sleep. And with ours, you can get on your side, and the pillow's not going to dislodge the mask and cause the mask to leak. So you're going to get more consolidated sleep. And then when you want to get out of the morning, you just simply disconnect. But one of the things that you could do that no other mask offers you is you can disconnect before you get out of bed. You can cap the end of the tube and you can leak check it again. If this is still sealed in the morning, you definitively had no leak. The mask did what it was supposed to do. Now you can take this off. And if you look over at your CPAP unit has a red frowny face that says, hey, you had high mask leak last night. It wasn't the mask, which is a common misconception for a lot of new patients, is if you see your machine saying that you had a lot of leak the previous night, it's actually the whole circuit. And patients just are not educated in a way so that they understand what the whole circuit means. The whole circuit can be your humidifier chamber, it can be your tubing, it can be your mouth, and it can be the mask. So it
Hmm.
can be one of four things. So with our mask, it gives you the opportunity to kind of isolate, if you're a new user, where are the leaks coming from? And then you can start taking some steps to kind of eliminate those. So 99% of the time, it's going to be the mask or your mouth. About 1% of the time, you might find you have a puncture hole, in your CPAP tube, or you may have dropped your humidifier chamber and it has a crack in it. Those are
Right.
really easy things to fix.
Right.
But with ours, if you can eliminate this and in the morning you can confirm that it's still perfectly sealed and you have that high leak, then it's the mouth.
Hmm.
And then it becomes an opportunity for you to be able to kind of solve that. And there's a lot of unique products that are out on the market. It used to be back in the 90s that it was, hey, you had to wear a chin strap. Wear a chin strap. Put a chin strap underneath that keeps your teeth together, and hopefully you can keep a seal across your lips. Well, now there's other products that are on the market, and some have some connotations with them that about mouth taping. There's different types of mouth taping. You can do like an X. You can tape all the way across. You can just tape, here to here, and leave a gap in the center. There's, um, you know, a lot of patients are beginning to mouth tape, and it's really important because, particularly for mild patients, because if you can eliminate all of your apnea as a mild patient, and your apnea apopnea index was 15, but now your mouth is blowing open 15 or 20 times an hour, your sleep's actually more than likely more fragmented than when you are on breathing by yourself.
Hmm.
So it's critical that you get all of the leaks under control, including your mouth, because if you don't, and your sleep is now fragmented worse because CPAP is blowing your mouth open, then your quality of sleep is still poor. And for a lot of those patients inside the first couple of weeks, if they can't get good sleep, they'll stop. Adoption becomes very, very hard. So with us, it gives you the opportunity to kind of like focus on, all right, how am I going to stop this? There's a couple of other products that are on the market called SomnoSeal and Mouth Shield, and it's like a silicone flap that you put between your teeth and your lip. And then if that's not good enough to kind of help keep the air from blowing your lips open, you could tape across that and really eliminate, all leak here. Then you eliminate all leak at the mask. And what that does is now your CPAP unit can't play stupid and try to compensate for a ton of leaks that it doesn't know where it's coming from. It starts to regulate itself much better. And then you can really kind of dial in your pressure, your min and your max pressure. You can kind of get to where's the optimal pressure. Most CPAP units are going to tell you, hey, look, your P95 pressure, or your average pressure 95% of the night, might be 8.6. Okay, well, great. Now what you can do is, instead of having a range of 5 to 20, you can say, well, if 95% of the time I'm at 8.6, then my min pressure could be at 8 and my max pressure could be at 9, and it gives your machine a little bit of room to kind of wiggle around if you get on your back, or move to your side, and you could be more at an optimal pressure. So you're eliminating the opportunity for the blower to exacerbate the amount of pressure you're getting and fragment your sleep. Sleep fragmentation is a big deal on CPAP, and you've got to really do everything you can to eliminate it.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so our mask helps kind of take you down that path. Uh, but again, you have to get involved. And And I want to kind of name drop a couple of things that are out there. One is called Sleep HQ. Sleep HQ is developed by a guy named Nick in Australia, and it's a great tool to be able to download the data from your CPAP unit using your SD card, and you can literally look at data that looks like a full blown sleep study. But beyond that, it's got a great community support system where you can go on and you can take screenshots of what your data looked like the night before, and you can put that up on a community forum board, and people will come out of the woodwork and give you some assistance. Hey, look, you have this going on. Hey, you might want to consider this. And the reason that this is important is because, as I alluded to earlier, you have a lot of patients. They don't get to get back in to see their doctor for sometimes 3 months to 6 months. Well, if most patients, if the data really is accurate, fail out of therapy inside the first 30 days, then you need some other support mechanism, as well as the ability to kind of take control of your own therapy. And
Sure.
these are really, really critical paths. One of the other opportunities like Sleep HQ is Oscar Sleep. Both are free to download. Sleep HQ's got kind of a premium platform that you can pay to get a little bit more of a service, but they're great tools for patients coming into being introduced to sleep and getting a better introduction of what CPAP therapy is all about.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. That was a great, educational demonstration there. And you're going to answer one of my questions right now, which is, does it hurt to take it off?
No, so you peel the adhesive stickers off in the morning. You won't be able to reuse them again. Um, and what that does is it certainly for a lot of patients feels like they don't have to wash the mask quite as frequently. One of the main reasons that you know patients were instructed to wash masks was because your oil from your skin gets on the silicone that generally is creating the seal in a nasal pillow or around the nose or the cradle. And the oil from your skin will actually deteriorate and break down the silicone, which then causes the mask to leak more, which causes people to tighten up the straps, which causes more marks and other issues to like transpire during the evening. So you have a lot of patients who are new to CPAP therapy, and then they wake up and then they've got a checkerboard on their face for 3 or 4 hours. Like I said, it's one of the biggest things that we eliminate. We did a lot of research before we came to market, and one of the things I will tell you is leak and comfort and fit were the top three issues for both men and women. Um, on average, a patient will go through 4.5 CPAP masks before they can find something they can tolerate. Um, you know, what I will tell you is most durable medical equipment companies, even though there are hundreds of masks that are on the market, they only carry a handful of masks in most cases. And unfortunately, a lot of respiratory therapists and sleep technicians in the industry have their favorites. And when I say favorites, they're going to have one or two masks that they think, unfortunately, should fit everyone and address everybody's pain points and problems. And they don't.
Hmm.
But because it is a very close minded industry, and a lot of people have their path of thinking and how they think masks should perform and who should start with what. A lot of patients get fit with the wrong mask. um, and in today's world, following COVID, so much of the diagnostic side of it is focused on home sleep testing. And with home sleep testing, you know you're getting the diagnosis, but you aren't coming in for CPAP titration anymore.
Right.
And so unfortunately, um, the industry is dependent on these CPAPs, being put on auto and a patient being put on a pressure from 5 to 20 on a range, and a mask is, willy nilly thrown on a patient, and the machine doesn't do a very good job of titrating them. The mask isn't right for them. They're given a full face mask in a lot of these situations because they're trying to compensate for the fact they don't want the patient's mask to cause their mouth to blow open. So if they get a full face mask, that kind of eliminates that. but it's just really a poor way of thinking about this. Uh, there really is a need that things should kind of go back to an old school approach where patients are getting CPAP titrations. Um, it's a far more successful solution for patients because you can really kind of dial in and address some of the pain points that the patient will go through on that first night. That creates a more opportune path for them to walk when they begin therapy.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but
Wow.
uh, it gets missed out on a lot now, sadly.
Yeah. No, you make a really good point there of the fact that we are seeing a proliferation of at-home sleep studies, which they have their benefits, but one of the downsides I can see would be you're not meeting with an actual person to help you test out the different types of masks and make sure the fitting is right. You just get a prescription and here you go, good luck with it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there are different mask designs. And even if there are, they may not be clear on how to use them. They may not have the opportunity to test them with somebody that can help them. And then even if they find the right mask, um, like you say, that the first couple weeks is the most important part. And if they can't figure out how to be comfortable and prevent leaks and the other common issues, then they just give up and don't use it, and they don't realize the danger that they're putting themselves in by not using a CPAP if they actually have sleep apnea. So
Absolutely.
wow. So okay, so your product is available where?
You can find our product at aeroflowsleep.com. Aeroflow has the Medicare contract in all 50 states. They've got 90% of the private pay insurance contracts. They have both Dreamport and Eclipse. Then you can move into more of the traditional nationals like Lincare, Adapt Healthcare, which is also known as AeroCare. There's kind of a merger between those two. Rotec has Eclipse, and if any of your durable medical equipment companies out there are affiliates of VGM, which is a group purchasing organization, they can buy Eclipse and Dreamport through VGM. But and then Apria is supposed to be onboarding Eclipse this month. So those are the four largest DMEs in the country as far as nationals: Lincare, Adapt, Rotec, and Apria. So any patient that can find our product online, and we are available all over the internet from a direct to consumer standpoint. So CPAP.com, direct to medical, SureSealCPAP.com, Apria Direct, Sleep Play. I mean, you name it, you can find our product. And there's even opportunities where you can find our product and you can buy just the frame by itself and just a box of halos by itself. Even on Amazon, you can purchase our mask and not need a prescription and be able to try the mask for a couple of weeks, see if you like it. And if you do, we can certainly find an insurance home for you for Medicare or private pay insurance.
Great. Great. Wow. This is a really interesting podcast, again, because I love the fact that this came out of just an idea that you had to solve a problem that you had, and you had the wherewithal and the stick to itiveness to make it happen. And clearly, it's going well for you. Anything new on the horizon in terms of the CPAP industry that is of note?
Uh, No, I would say that home sleep testing is becoming more and more aggressive. Um, you know, two of the things that like kind of I addressed, mouth breathing is a big deal. Um, a lot of patients, aren't aware that there are solutions out there. We get asked all the time, "Well, will your mask work for mouth breathing?" And I'm like, "Well, if you really need a full face mask because you have an obstruction or a deviated septum or polyps in your nose, or your nose has been broken and you just really can't breathe through your nose, then obviously a full face mask is a real solution for a lot of patients that are out there. But there's a test where you can actually kind of pull here and check to see whether or not you can breathe through your nose. If you can breathe through your nose, what it's going to do is it's going to afford you not needing as high a pressure. What I will tell you is full face masks generally are going to require 4 to 6 centimeters more pressure than a nasal mask. And additionally, full face masks pull back on the mandible. So what that does is as you tighten these down, it pulls back here and that narrows the airway, which means you're going to need more pressure to keep the airway splinted. A lot of people just don't understand that. Plus, you have all the surface area of a full face mask trying to seal this. If these are leaking, again, as we tell you, the leaks can cause fragmentation, and that just kind of wrecks your sleep. Almost no one should legitimately start with a full face mask. You should try any other kind of nasal, cradle, or pillow mask because it's going to be able to keep your pressures lower. And you should try and get to your side of your stomach if you feasibly can, and you find that those are comfortable areas to get into. There's going to keep your pressures lower. There's going to lessen the opportunity for leaks, and those things are all going to kind of help drive more compliant sleep and help you adopt, CPAP better out of the gate.
Mhm.
But if you're having any types of leaks or pain points on your face, we solve a ton of those issues. And real quick, I'll just cover, we did a research study, and we had 72 compliant CPAP users participate in this study. You had to be on CPAP for over a year, compliant. You had to be on a nasal, cradle, or pillow mask. In the end, they got to use our mask for 2 weeks. 74% of patients using Eclipse loved it and would recommend it to another CPAP user. So great net promoter score. But 43% of those users called our mask a quality of life changing CPAP mask. It was just that good. And this study is published on our website. And then our clinical study, we went against the ResMed P10, which is the world's best selling CPAP mask. Super light, great mask. But it's light. And because it's light, it has a tendency to wiggle and move around a lot. So it can cause leaks as well as marks on your face, and it can slide around on your hair. In the end, we were found to be clinically equivalent on AHI. That's your apnea-hypopnea index. From what your machine will tell you in the morning, we were clinically equivalent on 95th percent pressure, which is the average pressure that the machine's going to take you to, and we were clinically equivalent on leak. But in secondary outcomes, patients on our mask, on Eclipse, perceived Eclipse to be less claustrophobic, no impact on hair, no impact on dry eyes, and easier to disconnect and reconnect if you were getting up to go to the bathroom or if you were practicing, because you could take it off and put it right back on again. The only category that the world's best-selling mask beat us in was ease of taking the whole mask off in the morning, because with headgear, you could just rip it off. With us, you have to peel adhesive
Right.
off. So I know we're not going to be for everyone, but as I'd said earlier, there is no one mask for everyone. You'd have to be, blind to think, that one mask is going to treat everyone. It's just not the case. Now, everybody may be kind of in love with the mask that they ultimately, come to start using pretty regularly.
Mhm.
But my problems are not the same as your problems or someone else's problems. And what you have to understand is an average person may have 3 or 4 problems. So while your mask might address one problem, it may not be addressing 3 or 4 other problems with that patient. And so people need, clinicians, physicians, patients, they all need to have a more open understanding that what works for some does not work for all. It's no different than, like Lord of the Rings. There's, one ring to rule them all. There is no one CPAP has to rule them all. Just doesn't work that way.
Right.
So
Right.
it's about coming into CPAP therapy with an open mind and just understanding whatever you're given the first time. That first setup, that is more than likely it's not going to be the mask that you're going to stay with. You're going to keep stepping out looking for better solutions. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been really, really interesting and fascinating, and I love the I love the product. I love the story behind the product. So congratulations on everything you've done, and I wish you continued success with it. This is great to be able to just sort of learn the behind the scenes pieces of all of these things. So, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I encourage people to take a look at it. And your website, by the way, what is the name of your website?
So our website is bleepsleep.com. So BLEEP and then sleep, SLEEP.com. And it's got videos and a bunch of patient testimonials who just have recorded, talking about the product and how it's changed their lives, where they just weren't compliant on a previous mask. So a lot of interesting data and information there to kind of absorb and see whether or not we might be the right solution for you.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, Stuart. I appreciate you taking the time. And thank you for joining us and sharing this with the audience. And, I wish you success with the continued growth of the company.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's been
Sure.
great.